Hello guys, Not Blue here. Today we are going to be reacting to the new Cleric changes for the 2024 Player's Handbook. We're just going to jump right into this. This is technically the premiere, just because I didn't want to wait for the full video to come out.
Hello everyone, today we are talking about clerics. You know, those folks that keep you alive. Plenty of new things in all the classes and the subclasses. That is also true for clerics.
One of the things that we wanted to make sure we did with the cleric, which is also a very popular class, is, as we've done with all of the classes, protect their core identity while looking for ways to amp up the fun, particularly for clerics and others who focus sometimes on healing, although of course many of us have played clerics who are all about smiting or something other than healing. But we wanted to make sure that anyone who is focusing on healing in the game really could feel good about it. And that's why we talked in our video about spells, about the buffs to many of the game's healing spells. And so clerics in particular are going to really feel that improvement and feel like that if they decide to spend their turn or part of their turn in battle helping their friends or themselves get back into the fight, we're hoping they're going to feel far better about dedicating their playtime to that healing activity. Now, when it comes to the class itself, right away at first level, people are going to get a brand new feature called Divine Order. Both the Druid and the Cleric now have this feature at first level that allows them to decide if they want to go more in the spellcasting direction or lean a little bit more into the armor and weapon direction. Now, Clerics and Druids both have at the baseline sort of decent weapon and armor capability and are very solid spellcasters. So this choice is really a choice of emphasis or of spice. Whichever one you choose, you're still going to have, again, decent armor and weapons as well as very formidable spellcasting. If you decide to go in Divine Order with the new Protector option, it means right at first level, you're going to start with proficiency with martial weapons and heavy armor. This is how you can make the classic first edition cleric decked out in heavy armor and wielding a mace. But we've also acknowledged that over the decades, many clerics have instead leaned more in a kind of robe-wearing, divine magic wielding aesthetic direction. And so the Thaumaturge option supports that aesthetic by giving you an extra cantrip and also making it so that, and again, this is similar to what we did in the Druid, buffing some of your ability checks with a bonus equal to your wisdom modifier. And in the case of the cleric, the ability checks that get buffed are your intelligence, arcana, and religion checks, making it so that the thaumaturge, even if their intelligence isn't super high, can tap into their divine magic to give them a sense of information about either general magic in the form of arcana or about religion.
Perfect.
Okay, so I do kind of like this. I'm more of an armor with a mace kind of cleric. Even though I haven't fully played one in D&D before, I've played one in Baldur's Gate. So I'm more of an armor and mace kind of cleric. I do like the option of being the more spellcaster focused, which might contradict something I've said in a prior video, but I really like getting to add wisdom modifier to some of that other stuff. A cleric should be good at making religion checks. The arcana, that's cool. It's a more spellcaster focused class if you go down the thaumaturge route, but I really appreciate that you can add your wisdom modifier to religion checks because a cleric should be good at religion checks.
Now, in spellcasting, which is also at first level, there is an important change there where now clerics, every time they level up, can swap out one of their cantrips. Now you can say, oh, okay, I'm not using this cantrip as much as I thought, and so you can change. At second level, clerics get their iconic Channel Divinity feature, just as before. It still includes the option to turn undead, which again goes all the way back to first edition of clerics channeling their divine might to drive back the forces of undeath.
They should leave those undead alone. It's not fair.
But we have also now added a brand new channel divinity option for all clerics called Divine Spark. And this is a really fun channel divinity option where the cleric decides if they're going to channel this raw divine power either to harm someone or help them. So you can either deal damage with it or heal somebody with it. And we did this because looking over not only the subclasses for the cleric in this book, but as well as the other subclasses that have come out for the cleric over the years, clerics, depending on subclass choice, have had sort of varying use for their channel divinity. Like if you are in a campaign with few or no undead, turn undead does you no good.
Yeah.
And then some subclasses have channel divinity options that are useful every session, and then other subclasses have channel divinity options that are useful less frequently. With that reality in mind, we created Divine Spark to give every cleric, regardless of subclass, a channel divinity option that is likely to be useful in every single session of play, because pretty much every session, at least one point, you're going to want to deal damage or heal somebody. Unless you're having a very peaceful shopping montage session, right?
That's fair.
Unless, you know, the cleric discovers that the shopkeep is undead and they need to drive them away.
Yeah.
None of my shopping montages in my games end with the players wanting to do peaceful things. I think it's more of my party itself, but most of my shopping montages end with somebody doing something stupid. But yeah, I like that there's a little bit more flexibility with the God, what's the name of it? Divine something. We're just gonna keep going.
With Turn Undead. Now, that classic option, Turn Undead, it itself has been redesigned. As much as we enjoy the classic Turn Undead of the undead who are affected scam.
I've seen this picture before. Is the guy in the wheelchair the cleric? Because it looks like he might have a holy symbol. Like the dude with the flintlock pistol in the wheelchair. Is he cleric, maybe?
Far away. We wanted this to be a bit less disruptive for the cleric, because it is often not useful for the cleric for the undead to now be half a mile away when it runs out.
Right, and spread around the map, yeah.
Exactly. So Turn Undead still, if it affects an undead creature, it still shuts them down in terms of being able to do much of use for them, but no longer has them scrambling from, here to the next town. And we found that not only in the Unearthed Arcana process, but also in our own play tests, that this new version of Turn Undead is a lot of fun.
Okay, I kind of like that too. So you don't want to spread them out too far, because if it does end, then you just have zombies or skeletons just everywhere. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
This is like a debuff or damage or?
So what it does now is the undead creature is incapacitated and frightened for 1 minute. And it does try to move as far as it can from you on its turns, but it's no longer dashing.
Yeah, okay.
And it also it's clearer with the rest of the system how it's behaving because it has now the incapacitated condition as well as the frightened condition. And those two things were implied before, and now it's explicit.
Okay.
The new version of Turn Undead is then buffed later at level 5 by another new feature called Seer Undead. And with this feature, you now have the option, when you use Turn Undead, to blast the undead creatures that you're turning with radiant energy and deal damage to them. This is a way for you to have your Turn Undead have an offensive capability without requiring the undead to hit a particular challenge rating threshold to be destroyed by your Turn Undead. So the 2014 version of Turn Undead, when you got to higher level, would just simply destroy certain undead creatures. And what we found is the problem with that is it was this very kind of all or nothing thing. And then that also meant that you gained no benefit against creatures that were not within that very specific challenge rating range. We replaced that primarily because we wanted to give you a buff that you were happy to have no matter what the CR was of the undead creature. And so now you have this ability to, like, you don't have to worry about what the CR is. Once you have it, you have the option of blasting it with radiant damage. And the advantage of this new feature is eventually this radiant damage will get high enough that you will still pretty much automatically destroy very low CR undead.
Yeah.
So you will often, particularly if you have lucky damage rolls for the radiant damage, still incinerate the undead that you're turning. But even when you don't do that, you're still going to be able to pump out some radiant damage, even against that high CR lich.
Yeah, perfect. Makes sense.
Now at level 7 in the Cleric, we also have a new feature called Blessed Strikes. And Blessed Strikes is a replacement for two different features that appeared previously in subclasses. Cleric subclasses in the past tended to have either a feature called Divine Strike or one called Potent Spellcasting. Divine Strike pushed the cleric toward weapon use, and potent spellcasting, it's in the name, buffed the cleric spellcasting, specifically the cleric's cantrips. And because we now let you at first level decide which of those directions you want to lean in, we wanted you to then, following on from that, get to make a choice between Divine Strike and Potent Spellcasting at level 7, rather than automatically giving you one of those as part of a particular subclass. And we found that doing it the old way kind of pigeonholed certain subclasses in ways that wasn't always how the players wanted to play that subclass. You know, we might have decided that a particular subclass got Divine Strike rather than Potent Spellcasting, but the player who chose that subclass might decide, but I'm not interested in wearing armor and being in melee. I want to actually hang back, and would really have enjoyed having Potent Spellcasting instead. So,
Okay, so I like this one too. I think it just adds a little bit of flexibility. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of flexibility. And it doesn't overcomplicate it either, which has been my concern with some of the stuff for this handbook. So yeah, I like this. It kind of ties in very nicely with that force level feature of being able to pick whether or not you're more of a martial-based cleric or a spellcasting-based cleric.
So with that in mind, we've put the power in the player's hands to decide which of those directions that you go in. We also, this is a case where we have a note in the feature itself that if you happen to take the new version of the Cleric, but wed it to a subclass from an older book, you do not get both the Potent Spellcasting or Divine Strike from the subclass, as well as whatever you choose from the base class. You just get one.
Perfect.
And that's explained right here in the Cleric itself.
Okay.
Now, when we get to level 10, we have a new version of Divine Intervention. Now, previously, Divine Intervention was a style of game design that I sometimes refer to as Mother May I game design, where the player basically had to ask the DM's permission for something to happen. And also, this was locked behind a die roll that would determine whether or not your feature even did anything. So our goal with the new Divine Intervention is we wanted to give the Cleric certainty that their class feature would actually do something. And so in the new design, you just simply use it, and you choose any Cleric spell of level 5 or lower that doesn't require a reaction to cast, and you cast it. It's that simple. And then you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. So what this means is once you reach level 10, you as a Cleric, regardless of what Cleric spells you have prepared, have in your back pocket the ability to pick any Cleric spell of 5th level or lower and decide, I'm casting that now. So it still serves the function that Divine Intervention had before, which is sort of fishing for a divine get-out-of-jail-free card. And I think the feedback we got on this was very positive. And what's also really nice about it is when you cast the spell, you don't expend a spell slot, and you do not need material components. This means, yes, you could choose Raise Dead, which is a 5th level spell, and cast it, calling on Divine Intervention to raise someone from death. And we designed this very specifically to make that happen, because what else feels like Divine Intervention than bringing back somebody from the dead?
You are going to ruin the diamond economy in D&D. All these NPCs that sell diamonds are just...
in all of their shops outside all the temples in D&D cities.
Exactly 500 gold piece worth of diamond.
That's right. That's right. Now, at level 14...
Okay, really quick with the Divine Intervention. I get what they're going for here. I kind of like that it's 5th or lower, and that they said Raise Dead. I thought it was Revivify. They might have changed the name for this edition. I love the joke about the diamond market going down in D&D. That's really funny. But without the joke, it does make more sense that there's not such an abundance of 500 gold piece diamonds just all over the place. I do kind of like the flexibility that the old Divine Intervention had. Let's actually look that up really quick to make sure that I'm not incorrect. So Divine Intervention in 5e. So imploring your deity's aid requires you to use your action. Describe the assistance you seek and roll percentile die. If you roll a number equal to or lower than your cleric level, your deity intervenes. The DM chooses the nature of intervention. The effect of any cleric spell or cleric domain spell would be appropriate. If your deity intervenes, you can't use this feature again for 7 days. Otherwise, you can use it again after you finish your long rest. At 20th level, your call for intervention succeeds no matter what. So, maybe I do kind of like this new one a little bit better. Because the old one, there's a very high chance that it fails. I think this one, making any spell succeed, makes a lot of sense. The flavor of the old one does make sense, though, to where, like, your deity is not going to intervene every time you call on them. But I do like that there's less of a failure rate with this. I mean, no failure rate with this, right? They did say that it just automatically succeeds a spell, right? This is going to make it so much harder to keep players down. So, like, if you're the DM and it's supposed to be a very serious fight, the cleric can just pull this out of their pocket, it sounds like. But that's okay. It's not DM versus player mentality, but, I mean, sometimes it's not bad to add that levity to the scene of somebody's downed, the cleric doesn't have a crystal or a diamond. I'm sorry, but you know what? I do really like this.
We improve Blessed Strikes, and so whichever option you chose earlier at level 7, Divine Strike or Potent Spellcasting, it gets even better. And then finally, at level 20, we have Greater Divine Intervention, which now lets you choose the Wish spell. And the Wish spell, as the divine intervention that you're reaching out for, and gives you all of the magical flexibility that Wish gives a spellcaster. And the Wish spell has been expanded in the spell chapter. It has several new built-in options that do not risk you triggering the
monkey's paw effect.
the fatigue that Wish can impose upon a person.
Yeah.
And it also has further guidance in the spell of what happens to you if you try to mess with gods, or even worse, with the Lady of Pain.
Yeah.
Like our other dedicated...
Okay, so giving them the wish spell at level 20 is perfectly fine. Most people aren't making it to level 20. I guess it's kind of like a reward for getting that far into a campaign. Because Wish is an incredibly powerful spell, but if you don't give people uses of it, what is the point of keeping Wish in the campaign? So I do kind of like that they get the Wish spell at level 20 instead of the improved Divine Intervention in 5e, which was just that your Divine Intervention automatically succeeds.
Dedicated spellcasting classes. The spell list has been expanded, not only because of new spells that are in the book, like Summon Celestial, but also because of spells that were already in the game in 2014 that clerics now have access to. And our cleric subclasses definitely also then get to make use of the bolstered spell selection because of their domain spells. So shall we dive into the life domain?
Yeah, let's get into the life domain. This is kind of the classic cleric.
The life domain cleric is meant to be the preeminent healer in the game. I often like to tell people that if they really love playing a healer and they like the aesthetic of the cleric, the life domain is fantastic. You really cannot go wrong choosing this if you want to be a character who's all about helping other people. We took the really excellent features in this subclass and we fine-tuned them, altering some of the spell selection in the domain spell list so that the life domain cleric would be even more on theme in terms of their healing prowess. And we've even done subtle tweaks that people might not notice immediately, like, for instance, Preserve Life now actually works on undead and constructs.
Oh, fantastic.
The fact that a number of healing spells did not work on undead and constructs actually created a number of design headaches for benevolent undead or constructs that might be in a player's group, either because they summoned them or they became undead but are still, heroic. Or there are constructs.
Yeah, we ran into this with the Reborn lineage at the time.
Exactly. And so people will notice that not just in Preserve Life, but many places in the player's handbook where before certain healing effects didn't work on undead and constructs, that has largely been removed. And instead, when the monster manual comes out, people will find that certain monsters, particularly monsters that are made of like shadow stuff from the negative energy plane, we are exploring it being a feature of the monster themselves. It isn't even that they can't be healed, it's that they're actually harmed by healing spells.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
And so that actually is allowing us to bring back some flavor that has existed in earlier editions of healers being able to turn their healing spells on certain kind of fell creatures. But for that, people will have to wait for the new monster manual.
That's awesome, though. That's a great change.
But in the meantime, you will also be able to restore life to, say, because again, I know you as the ever lover of warlocks.
Yes.
If the warlock has a skeleton in the group, the cleric can now heal their friend's skeleton.
I will laugh. That is perfect. That brings us to the light domain.
I like being able to heal constructs and undead. Not much more to say than that, but I do like that. Especially if you get Warforged and stuff into your campaigns. Even though they're not playable races in this, you can take them from 5e.
Another popular subclass for the cleric.
The light domain has had quite a bit of revision within it. Part of that was based on us wanting to make it a little less one note and being all about fire, 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 fire.
What's wrong with that?
Partly because the light domain has always been meant to represent sort of divine illumination.
Yeah.
Which fire is certainly a fun expression of that.
Right.
But it's not the fire domain, it's the light domain.
Yeah.
And so we've preserved some of the, tasty, fiery bits. So, don't worry, Fireball is still here. But we wanted to also bring in some spells in the domain list that are about vision, about, and I mean sort of metaphorically about vision. And so there's some divination spells here that are about wiping away falsehood, that sort of thing. And so that's why, you'll see things here like scrying and see invisibility, that sort of thing. Arcane Eye, these are here. We also made it so that the level 3 warding flare feature is usable right away whether you're the person being targeted or somebody else. It used to be you had to wait to a higher level to have the I help my friend version of it. You now get that right away. Then later at level 6, when you get improved warding flare, when you use warding flare to protect somebody, you now also can give them temporary hit points. And you also now regain all uses of warding flare whenever you finish a short or a long rest.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So the light domain cleric is going to be able to use their signature ability, warding flare, more often, and it's even more potent than it was before. We've also taken a look at Corona of Light, and we've now made it so that it imposes disadvantage on saving throws against your Radiance of the Dawn, in addition to any spells that deal fire or radiant damage. We wanted there to be more internal synergy here because we didn't want it to just benefit your spells, but then you have your channel divinity option to just emit a whole bunch of light and have it not benefit. So this also is a theme you and I have returned to in these videos of more synergy, more feeling like you can combine your abilities with your friend's abilities, but also, very importantly, combine your own abilities with each other in new ways. And I'm excited to see how people combine things that we haven't even imagined yet.
Yeah, that is, I'm doing a lot of combing through this book already and trying to come up with different combinations. That's part of the fun.
Now, next up we have the trickery domain.
I love the trickery domain. This is one of the best. I love this subclass. I love the theme of it. And the spell list was always fantastic for the trickery domain, but now the functionality of the keystone abilities are really, really good.
And the trickery domain, in many ways, is the foil to the light domain. Many of the subclass quartets in the book.
I guess before we jump too far into the trickery domain, I do like the changes to the light domain. I like that the warding flare is a little bit better. I like that they have more synergy with the light, like the divine energy spells doing more damage. This is a bad freeze frame for Jeremy Crawford right here. But yeah, I like the light domain. I think it's just it's kind of like the life domain, just a very quintessential class for the cleric. So I think good changes there.
Are often actually two duos.
Yeah.
And in the cleric, the trickery domain, which is all about illusion and sort of pranks,
Deception.
and being the trickster, is the counter to the the light of revelation, seeing everything as it really is. And then similarly, the life domain cleric has its foil in this class in the form of the war domain cleric. One being all about restoring vitality to people, and the other about destroying things.
Yeah.
And so, the cleric, we have this fun axis going on with these four subclasses. Now, the trickery domain, as you said, got some really nice updates. And it starts right away in Blessing of the Trickster, which now the cleric can actually use on themselves, which they used to not be able to. And it used to last just for an hour, but now it lasts until the end of your next long rest.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which is a really nice way to ensure that people can use this for maybe extended infiltrations.
Yeah.
Particularly if the cleric uses it on somebody else, and it wouldn't be around to, in the past, refresh it after it wore off after an hour.
Oh yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah.
So invoke duplicity, which is of course, the signature ability of this subclass, got improved in a number of ways. In both the base feature as well as in the improvements that come later at level 17. One is you can now summon up your illusory duplicate as a bonus action instead of an action.
Perfect.
And you do not have to concentrate on it anymore.
Thank you.
Because
that was so difficult. Yeah.
The combination before of it taking your entire action and you having to concentrate on it meant you were in some ways being shut down in two ways. You were spending it a whole turn bringing it out, and then you couldn't at the same time have any of the clerics' really nice concentration spells going simultaneously.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to address that when we revisited this subclass, so that the subclass felt like it was playing nice with the rest of the class, and not shutting your own class down through its use.
And again, that is a lot of the change in design is what you want to do during a turn happens so much faster.
Yes. In the higher level improved duplicity up at level 17, that used to create multiple duplicates. You now just have one duplicate. But what we've now done is that your duplicate now assists not just you, but also your allies when it comes to conferring advantage on attack rolls. And when the illusion vanishes, it now heals. You can have it heal somebody next to it. We wanted, again, this illusion to be more cleric-y, so that it truly felt like you're not just a trickster, you are a trickster cleric. And so that's why we brought in more of this element of you being able to assist your team in addition to assisting yourself.
There's another really juicy add-on to this ability.
Yes, between level 3 and 17, there is now a brand new feature, and that is whenever you take the bonus action to create the illusion, you can teleport, swapping places with the illusion. And this not only gives you some really fun mobility, but it makes it so that the tricksy cleric can mess with enemies even more, because if suddenly you're swapping positions, they think you're over there, but you're actually over here.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, we modified the domain spell list. And
So they just took what the Echo Knight could do, right? The Echo Knight could make an echo of themselves and swap with the Echo. So it's the same concept, just there's no Echo Knight anymore. I mean, I like it. Invoke Duplicity is cool. I think that's a good addition to it.
that's something we did in all of them to try to make the list of spells that you have from this subclass as thematic and as fun as possible. So finally, we have the war domain.
Yeah.
The war domain has been improved across the board. One of the ways that you'll see that immediately is in Guided Strike. You can now, right from the start, use this to benefit other people. It used to be that you could only use it on yourself when you first got it. And this is the, for people who don't remember, this is the Channel Divinity where you can just give yourself a gigantic +10 to hit.
Yeah.
And you know, people have seen Omen Drawn do this many times in Acquisitions Incorporated. But you had to wait till a much higher level to be able to use it on other people.
Yeah.
Now you can use it on yourself or other people right away.
Oh, wow, okay.
And we did this similar to some of the changes we made in the Trickery domain. We did this so that this would be more cleric-y right from the start. The whole cleric class is about interactions with other party members, because even if you're a cleric who isn't focusing on healing, clerics still have a number of abilities that otherwise buff their friends, and so we're always looking for ways to make sure that even when clerics might be leaning more in a sort of damage dealing direction, that there still is an interaction element when it comes to their buddies. Now, the advantage of doing this also means we free up a class feature slot where we can then put in something new, so that you're not having an entire feature eaten up by now you can use this on your friends.
Yeah.
So there's a double advantage to us making a change like this. We also, in the War Priest ability, which you get at 3rd level along with Guided Strike and your domain spells, we have made it so that you can now make an unarmed strike with the bonus action attack, not just a weapon strike. This is actually something we've done in a number of places in the New Player's Handbook, where previous abilities that only worked with weapons now also work with unarmed strikes. We're doing this not only for the sake of multi-classing, but also because we know that people, regardless of what class they have, sometimes like the fantasy of playing an unarmed character. And so we wanted to support that. We have also made it so that you regain the uses of your War Priest ability when you complete a short or a long rest. So you're also going to be able to use this more often. At level 6 with the War God's Blessing, we reuse the old name, but in terms of functionality, it is brand new, because now we've made it so that you can burn Channel Divinity uses to cast Shield of Faith or Spiritual Weapon. We decided we wanted to make the War Domain Cleric the type of cleric who has the easiest time casting two of the most iconic low-level war-themed cleric spells, Shield of Faith and Spiritual Weapon. One defensive and the other one offensive. And so that means that the War Domain Cleric, more than any other cleric, will be able to shield their allies or bring out that spectral weapon to bash foes easier than any other kind of cleric.
Okay, so I like that because it saves you some spell slots. And spiritual weapon's great, but a lot of the times, even in like Baldur's Gate, I did not want to use spiritual weapon because I had other spells I wanted to use. And then Shield of Faith is great. It's just a very good defensive spell.
Cleric.
This is a nasty spell list too. Steel, Wind, Strike is in here.
Oh yeah, the spell list has been revised in ways that are really exciting.
Yeah.
So the Steel, Wind, Strike, this is a great example of how all the domain lists and other subclass spell lists have benefited from the expanded spell chapter, because Steel, Wind, Strike wasn't in the 2014 Player's Handbook. But when we made the decision to have this really spicy ranger spell appear in this book, we thought, oh, this is perfect for the War Domain Cleric as well.
Yeah.
Before we move on to their capstone, I should also mention that if the War Cleric uses their Channel Divinity to cast Shield of Faith or Spiritual Weapon, it doesn't require concentration.
Oh, nice.
And if you cast it, again, using your Channel Divinity rather than a spell slot. So extra.
Oh, that's really good then. I didn't realize that they were going to not require concentration, because that makes it a lot better. You're not only not using a spell slot, but you're not concentrating on spiritual weapon either.
Spicy.
Yeah.
Finally, Avatar of Battle even has been tweaked in that before you got resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, but only those damage types when dealt by non-magical weapons. We've removed that non-magical weapon part so that now you just simply gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. Meaning that this new version of the War Cleric, more than ever before, will be able to, be this priest character who is throwing down in the middle of battle.
When you pre-order the digital.
Okay, I really like that too. It's a good idea to take away that magical weapons caveat, because there's a lot of enemies, especially at higher levels, that all of the attacks are magical weapons. So either they're actually holding a magical weapon, or they're like claws if it's a monster, are counted as a magical weapon. So it's really good to take away that requirement, that little piece right there of bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing, without it having to be without you having to worry about magical weapons. I think that also makes it easier on the DM, because you don't have to say, hey, this is how much slashing damage you take, and it is a magical weapon. You can just say, hey, this is the slashing damage. You can have that. Okay, so overall, good changes to the Cleric. I think the last couple of videos have been very positive. I like that they're taking away some of the concentrations for Cleric. They're making things a little bit easier. I like the flexibility of being able to pick between the Marshal and just the Spellcaster, because it just adds to that flavor a little bit more. After reviewing it, do like the Divine Intervention changes. I think it's nice that you pretty much are guaranteed a spell out of it. And then it's cool that they get Wish at level 20. Like I said, most players will never get to take advantage of that, but it is cool that at the end of a campaign, you get like that added bonus of being able to cast the Wish spell, which most players never get the chance to cast. Okay, so overall, like I said, great changes for the Cleric. I hope everybody enjoyed this video. If you did like the video, you can leave your like. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell to get notified when videos are released. And other than that, I hope everybody is having a great day. And until next time, peace.